Okay, good day and welcome to this special edition of LEAD360 Her in honor of Black Music Month. My name is Dorinda Walker and I am the head of women's programming for LEAD360, a professional development organization dedicated to the advancement of Black middle managers and senior leaders. Before we get started, I want to acknowledge the anger, the hurt, and disappointment we're feeling as racism continues to plague our country and test our humanity. There are really few words that can alleviate our pain, but I want to share these inspiring words of encouragement from the founder and CEO of LEAD360, Dr. Eric Walton, because it's a reminder of who we are as a strong and resilient people. In his message this week, he stated, "We understand the anger, hurt, and grief that our tribe is feeling due to the tragic murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless others that have sparked outrage not only in America, but throughout the globe. As Black leaders, the greatest challenge
Here's what I found on the internet.
we face is to eradicate racism. We can no longer hide our hurt feelings behind our professionalism. Our business titles do not negate our humanity, our pain, or our grief. It's time for us to unite, to speak out, and mobilize our voices and our allies. We can no longer afford to be complacent. Our response during this difficult time in America's history will define our legacy and our humanity. Our mentality must be one of leadership, strategy, and action. We are innovative and creative leaders. Let's use the collective talent, influence, and power of our tribe to create real and sustainable change. Despite our current trials and tribulations, we will win anyway. So, with that message of encouragement, we're going to divert the narrative of the past week and focus on Black excellence and celebrate our impact on music. My guests today have made significant contributions to the Black music industry, which is the most profitable segment of the multi-billion-dollar global music business. I'd like to welcome our guests, Sheila Eldridge, CEO and President of Miles Ahead Entertainment and Broadcasting, Nikki Gilbert Daniels, content creator, singer, and host of She Speaks Live, and Deidre Tate, President of CEO Unlimited Context. Ladies, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on the LeaderCast.
Thank you.
Deidre,
Thanks for
I'm going to
having
start
us.
with you. You're welcome. Thank you for being with us. So, Deidre, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about your journey into the music business and how that journey has led you to the work you do today.
Okay. All right. Well, my journey actually is 36 years and counting. And I graduated from Howard University at 20 years old. My father at the time was heavily connected in the advertising industry. And I only wanted to work at one place, and that was MTV, which had just started. So he just happened to have a mentee that was the one African American account executive there. She opened the door for me. I got an interview with two Jewish account executives, and I told them that I lived right on 79th Street. I could get home even if it's snowing. I can make it into work, and I only need to get paid enough money to pay my American Express bill. And they said, "You're hired." So that's how I got my foot in the door. And from there, I kind of just looked at the landscape to see what the popping areas were. And I quickly found out that it was the talent relations department. That's who the salespeople had to go to try to get tickets for any concert. So I ended up getting the first interview when a position became available, and I got that position. 2 years later, my boss, Sam Kaiser, started a record label with Elton John called Uni Records. He took me with him, and that's how I ended up on the record side. Uni happened to be distributed by MCA Records, and in the elevator, I met my mentor, who I miss dearly, Mr. Gerald Busby, in the elevator, and we were going up, and I didn't know who he was, and he was just dumbfounded because I was a Black person in the music industry and didn't know who he was because I worked with all pop artists. So I asked him what floor he was going to. He said 8. I was like, so am I. So then he was like, well, where do you work? And I said, Uni Records. And he was like, there's Black people at Uni. And I was like, that's how they got the name. I'm the only Black person there. So that's how we started our relationship. I ended up leaving with him from MCA when he took over Motown. I was at Motown for 8 years. The latter 3 of those years, I was the general manager of Biv 10 Records, which is the label they gave to Michael Bivins, who was one of my artists at New Edition on MCA. And then Gerald signed Queen Latifah to Motown while I was at Biv 10 Motown, which is how I met she and Shakim Compare. And then they asked me to come to New Jersey to help them transition Flavor Unit management into records, which ended up turning into 13 years with that company, which ended up turning into Flavor Unit Entertainment, which transitioned from management to records to 3 labels and then into TV and film. So it was at that time that I started producing the Vibe Awards. And then I started doing my own things on the side. When they were trying to do comedies, I wanted to produce a drama. And I asked them if I could give them a first right of refusal so that I could do that on the side while still being the president and general manager of Flavor Unit. And that's how I started my company, Unlimited Contacts, while I was still working there because they didn't want to hold me back because I had projects that didn't align with what their vision was. And I ended up signing an incredibly talented director, a Haitian director named Jerry Lamotte. And our first film that we produced was Blackout, which starred Jeffrey Wright, Zoe Saldana. It was Michael B. Jordan's first lead in a film. And it's been an amazing journey since then.
Wow, talk about a career journey. That's awesome. Sheila, same question for you. Tell us about your journey in the music business.
Okay, well, Deidre, if you've been in it 35 years, and I guess I've been in it 40 years because I
Hmm.
knew your father before you even got in the industry. Okay,
Yeah.
dating myself. I also Howard University, okay, School of C. When I graduated, I moved to LA, and I always wanted to be in radio. My major was radio. Got to LA. By the time I got there, because at that time, obviously, there was no internet, we drove across country. The gentleman who was hiring me had gotten fired from the radio station. So here I am, 3,000 miles away from home, no gig. I was devastated, needless to say. And I just called on the people that I knew from the record industry because I had worked at WHUR at Howard University for years in the record department and the record library. So I knew everyone and they looked out for me. And I ended up getting a job at Casablanca Records. So I didn't necessarily, wasn't comfortable with disco at that time. So I left Casablanca, stayed there for about 3 years, left there and went over to Electra Records because it was jazz fusion and I have a passion for jazz. Thus, the name of my company, Miles Ahead, is I'm a big Miles Davis fan. So it's named after Miles. And we're both Geminis. So I moved over to Jazz Fusion. Well, Jazz Fusion didn't do too well. So Jazz Fusion was there 3 years again, and they dissolved the division at Elektra Records. And so I called my mother, devastated again, and she said, "Look, you're not a 9 to 5 girl. You've always been an entrepreneur. Why don't you start your own business?" So I said, "Okay, well, I'll just do it until I get some clients, or I'll just do it until I get another job." And that's been 40 years later. So I started doing PR and marketing and special events. And then the record industry went from vinyl to 8 tracks to cassettes to, I guess, CDs. I mean, I've been through all the transitions and I realized you can't build a business on one industry. So I decided to diversify and do more corporate work and look at corporations that wanted to do business in the entertainment industry. So I became the vessel for corporations like Coca-Cola, who did things with Sprite, for McDonald's. I mean, a lot of companies that were moving into the entertainment industry. I booked all the talent, negotiated all the deals, did the promotions and the PR around it. And that's what kind of gave me the arm to be able to do entertainment, but corporate work. But I always wanted to get back to my love, and my love has always been broadcast and radio. So I guess about 20 years later, I moved to New York and started working on purchasing radio properties because I really wanted to move into ownership. Kathy Hughes is my mentor. And I ended up, after going through a whole year's program that actually Radio One put me through, they paid for the program with the NAB. I bought 6 radio stations in Augusta, Georgia. So I thought, oh, I can do this I can live in Augusta, but to go from Augusta to New York to Augusta was culture shock. So, but what I did find there was that there was a need for quality programming. And that's how I ended up moving into broadcast. Moved into the nationally syndication business. So I launched the show Cafe Mocha. We now have three other shows. Dorinda, thank you. Be Lifted Up with Guy Marshall and Alfred Edmonds. Okay, that's on Sirius XM. And so I have a nice business that now is a combination of marketing and virtual now and broadcast. And that's pretty much how it's called Miles Ahead Entertainment and Broadcasting.
That's awesome. What a career journey. Nikki,
It's
same
been a
question.
journey.
Hey. So my sort of climb to fame is a little different. Ours started when we got stranded in the desert. Maxie was asked to participate in this music video, and we ended up getting stranded in the desert after we had sort of put together our little group and was going around the circuit doing auditions and whatnot. We got stranded in the desert, and I decided to stay behind with the person who was driving the van that tire where the tire blew. So I was like, hey, I want to learn a little bit about business, whatever. Long story short, he left me stranded. Got in a car, a El Camino, with two white guys. I wasn't about to do that. And I ended up having to call Monica in the middle of the night, like, could you please pick me up? And this was like payphone, crying, walking down the street, no access. Guy put a police station right in front of me, went into the police station. Mimi came and picked me up from Banning, California, 3 o'clock in the morning. The very next day, one of the people who worked with the gentleman who left me said, we want to make it up to you. We want to introduce you to some publishers. Maybe there's an opportunity. We know you guys are a girl group. We know y'all been trying to get a deal. Maybe something can happen. We went up into Barry Kolsky at Emerald Forest's office on this courtesy call, sang our songs. He was like, no thanks. Not what we're looking for. On the way out the door, walking out the door, sad and defeated, two women by the name of Marla McNally and Linda Blum were sitting downstairs, and they were like, what was that y'all were doing upstairs? What was that we heard? And we're like, me and my Detroit, hey, that was us. We were singing songs we wrote. Long story short, she said, I want you to come back tomorrow. I want to take you to meet somebody. She took us to meet Jerry Greenberg. We had no idea Jerry Greenberg ran Michael Jackson's label. We sang for Jerry, and I remember like it was yesterday. He said, oh my, a word I can't say, God. Y'all are amazing. Y'all are superstars. And from that point on, we signed with Michael Jackson's label. We sold, millions of records. We toured the world. We impacted music in a really positive way. And I wanted to stretch. I wanted more. So I started doing TV stuff. I did Martin. I did Living Single. I'm like, oh, I like this. I like this a lot. So then years later, after the music industry changed, which we all experienced, I was like, okay, I got to figure out something else, right? So and this is about right place, right time, God, and opportunity. I did this local play in Atlanta. The play went to Dothan, Alabama. Nobody was in the audience. The playwright said, hey, listen, y'all, nobody showed up. I can give you your money. You can roll out. We understand, but you're not going to get paid. It's an audience of 2,000. You're not going to get your money. Or you can go out here, give the people a show, and I'll thank you forever for it. Well, it happens that Tyler Perry was the one of probably 15 people in an audience of nobody. I mean, a capacity of 2,000. Tyler came back after the show, said, you, I love y'all. Y'all amazing. I want to put you in my play. He put me in his play, Meet the Browns. I played Vera Brown. You shop. And from there, I got bitten by the acting bug, but also it was my first example of seeing someone take something that he owned, create it, give it to the people, and be very, very successful as a result. So I started creating other content. I created this play called Soul Kittens Cabaret. We filmed the behind the scenes. I said, oh, this needs to be on TV. We pitched it. It became R&B Divas. That turned into what that was, which was amazing, by the way. And then I started producing other television and film content. And now 25 years later, going back to music. Oh, and She Speaks Loud
But
was also
Nikki,
born of that.
you come from a legacy though of music, right? And musicians.
Yes.
Your parents were musicians, right?
Yes, indeed.
So
My
you get it
mother
naturally.
director, so yes, it's in my DNA.
Yes.
And also, can I say,
Well,
Dorinda, not just musicians. My mother was the first example of a Black female entrepreneur I ever knew. She was a musician, a builder, a retailer, all of that. So,
that's awesome. What a legacy she left in you. I'm going to get right to Sheila now. So you talked about your incredible journey. Our 2020 theme for Lead 360 is truth and leadership. And when I think about the trail you blazed working with clients from Janet Jackson to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the OJs, and countless others, you've surely worked with some of the best in Black music. And, I'd be remiss in not, acknowledging your company's first multimedia production of Cafe Mocha, which is nationally syndicated
Thank you.
in 30 markets. So that's a huge, huge accomplishment. But you must have had to deal with some real truths in an industry that doesn't have the best reputation for uplifting or supporting women. In fact, Northwestern University released a study last year that revealed that women are still grossly underrepresented in the music industry. Men release more songs than women and are signed to record labels more frequently and are aligned with more collaborators to produce music. So, my question for you is, what are your thoughts about gender disparity? And what can women do to own their power as creative and innovative businesswomen in the music industry?
Well, I think that we're really just coming into our own with women like Sylvia Rohn, Ethiopia. So we're really just coming into our own. But when I was coming up in the industry, it was twofold. It was men that, of course, it did exactly what we did in the PR world and got paid more. And in record companies, because if you would, even though we were in the urban or Black music business and we were really making all the revenue for those companies, we weren't necessarily getting the budgets, nor were we getting the salaries of our counterparts, our Caucasian counterparts. That's number one. And then there was the dynamics of we would work with an artist, and as soon as, and Nikki knows this, as soon as the artist, and the artist starts breaking, and they kind of get huge exposure, then the record company would decide we need to put on a general market publicist. And as to say, because you're Black, you're not able to get crossover general market media, which is totally not true. But it was a way of kind of keeping us into a certain space, so that I think they wouldn't have to pay us like we should have been paid, and it hindered our growth. And that was one of the reasons why, when working at a record company, when I was able to go and start my own business, and really, and take clients that I had worked with, I love Jimmy and Terry because they were the first ones that said, "Look, you represent us, and whoever wants to book us, whoever wants to, do PR market, they have to come through you." The same thing, even when I worked with Janet, that was that same philosophy. Um, Now it's been 40, no, 30 years, and I'm still working with In Vogue, and it's been 30 years that we've worked together. But it was because there were artists that said, no, you represent us no matter what it is. And that was a very difficult time in the industry. And to some degree, it still is relevant today, but nowhere near as much as it was then. Did that answer your question? I hope.
It does. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that story. Um, I don't know if Nikki or Deidre want to weigh in though on what can women do today to make sure that they don't experience that gender inequity.
Well, this is Deidre. I just want to say to agree with Sheila, um, the record industry has always been so segregated. So
No
as soon as
question.
you even start getting a hit with anyone, all of a sudden the pop department now gets them. And when your artist comes into
Takes
your
them.
market, you're no longer the first priority to take them to R&B radio. Now you have to wait and try to fit into the schedule because they are building in an entire pop itinerary. That happened with many of our artists. I was at Motown and we had all of the big names from Stevie to Diana Ross to Smokey Robinson that had comeback projects, and we could barely get them to Black radio. And you know that that's how they became famous. So that's a real issue. But as far as women, I think like Sheila, I work with Sheila a lot. She hires me and my company, Unlimited Contacts, to work with the Cafe Mocha Salute Her Awards. And women have to start reaching out to each other and collaborating and working together to make themselves not only employable, but also to make themselves a better package deal, because you can come together and cover 5 different areas and become your own company. So I think that's what's really important nowadays, is for people to come together, especially women, pool your resources and put it together and make it into a monster machine.
No question.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it on what Deidre has said, because that's basically what I was gonna say. Same thing. I agree 100%. We
Okay,
have the
awesome,
responsibility
awesome,
to look out
awesome.
for each other.
I have this philosophy that networking works.
Well,
We
Nikki,
just don't do enough of it.
well, what do they say? Your network determines your net worth. So I'm with you
Yes.
on that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Nikki, this next question is for you because you're an entertainment industry veteran, and we all love, that we have the legacy of your music and that powerful voice as a lead singer, brownstone, and songwriter. And as you said, you sold, millions of records. You were nominated for a Grammy. Um, Tell us about your experience negotiating deals. Um, because I know you are on the other side of the business, having to negotiate those deals with music executive. And I know that experience was instrumental in you being the powerful businesswoman that you are today. So tell us about your experience negotiating deals, what you learned, the good and the bad, and what advice you would give to women about negotiating their deals in the entertainment industry.
Okay, can you all hear me okay? Yes, okay. I had a little bit of
Nikki,
an
are
issue
you okay?
hearing some of your questions, Dorinda,
Yeah,
but
we
I
can hear
think
you.
you asked me to talk about my experience negotiating deals, and uh, something else about what. So let me just assume I heard right.
What
Um,
advice would you give?
what advice would I give? Thank you. So the first thing is, coming in the door, people don't see a businesswoman. They don't see somebody who is necessarily worthy of um, being taken as seriously as they would if I was a black man or even a gay man, for that, as far as that goes. They see a person who used to be a singer, and in some instances, people believe that I should just shut up and sing. So getting to negotiating what is fair and what is equal and what is equitable, and respecting the fact that I had 2 parents. My dad was quality control for Motown Records. My mom was an entrepreneur and a singer, and more than just that, which is why I like to make the point of showing that my mom was not just a performer. Because oftentimes when I go into the room and start negotiating a deal, I'm looked at as someone who should just be quiet and sing. And it's a very frustrating thing, and it's something that I've learned in my newness of being an executive, of sort of learning to better understand and figure out better, sort of maybe backdoor or around the corner, or have this person go in representing me, kind of a way of getting things done. And it's unfortunate. I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done when it comes to women in general, not just me as a singer, but me being a woman who is not known as an executive, also black, and also opinionated and honest. Doesn't always fare for me at the negotiation table. But one of the things that I pride myself in doing is never compromising my self worth for net worth, to borrow from my sister from the Pink Panther clique, and just knowing that I can research the things that I don't know and I don't understand. We can communicate about those things, and we can come to an amicable understanding that is mutually beneficial for all parties, versus the assumption that I'm not worthy of taking the time to really negotiate great deals. Now, I've been lucky to have landed television shows. I have been lucky to have national platforms to talk to people and to share my heart. But one of the disadvantages of not being taken as seriously is that they never end up being, there's the value of the contribution never ends up truly being recognized by people in power, right? So I would say to anybody going in to negotiate a deal, just like I had to do, just like so many of us have to do, educate, inform, empower yourself with knowledge. When you go in that door, they may just assume that you're just a young entrepreneur, you don't know as much as they do, and they can kind of get over it. Like if we're gonna keep it real in this conversation, a lot of 90s R&B artists, no pun intended, signed contracts that we were not clear on, made mistakes that were very detrimental to our financial well-being and our welfare. So I would say to anybody negotiating a deal, research, don't stand down, and don't be afraid to leave money on the table. Because if we all work together in demanding better, then we'll eventually get it.
Yeah. And Dorinda, I just want to piggyback off of what Nikki said, because I did deal with a lot of the contract negotiation and signing artists. And one of the reasons why I started doing a lot of public speaking and going to meet with different artists and really took new artists under my wing is because, unfortunately, a lot of times once artists sign with a label that I worked for, especially if they were a songwriter, they did not negotiate in their contract to even be able to write their own songs. So now you have a $500,000 budget. You are not even able to put one of your songs on there because you have A&R people that are going to hook up their songwriter friends and publishers and people that have deals together. And the artist never even gets to represent themselves creatively, which is why during my time at labels, there was so many artists that were frustrated, running up in people's offices, trying to harass the executives because they did not understand what they were signing. They just looked at the signing bonus, but never looked at the long-term money, which is your publishing and your artistic creativity.
And we've all heard them stories.
Yes, and we've lived through them, believe me.
One of the things that Jimmy and Terry used to tell me is that you have to find something where you are making money in your sleep. And writing and publishing, and as writers and publishers, that's where you make money. Your music is being played somewhere in the world all the time. And they used to always say, figure out how to come up with something that you can make money in your sleep. And that's always kind of stayed with me. And a lot of artists don't understand that because they want to be the artist and not understand the importance of being the writer.
Mm-hmm. True. We can't hear you.
And that's true for any industry. You should always be making money in your sleep. Deidre, this next question is, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. I was saying that's true for any industry. You should always be making money in your sleep. So, Deidre, when we talk about leaving a legacy in music, there's no denying the impact of your work, from your career at MTV to all of the executive positions you had at MCA Motown, Ben 10 Flavor Unit, and supervising producer at the Live Awards, and as a huge fan of hip hop and its impact on our culture, I'm truly in awe. And I just want to thank you for your contributions. What advice would you give to any Black professional, male or female, looking to make an impact and blaze trails on the executive side of the music business?
Okay, it was hard to hear you, but I think you said, what advice would I have for someone on leaving a legacy or blazing a trail? Okay, so
what advice would you give?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I said, what advice would you give to someone who wants to be on the executive side of the business, to really make an impact in the music industry?
Okay, so I will just follow what my own advice was for myself, which was to really make a difference in opening the doors for people to come in behind you, and also to help them network and feel secure in growing in their own greatness as they come up under you, to not be insecure, and to make sure that you leave that legacy. I have been in this business for over 36 years, and I can look around and see the people that were my interns that are now running multi-million dollar companies. They're managing the top artists, and I still have the greatest relationship, not only with them, but with every single artist that I've ever worked with. That's because you have to make sure that you are secure and always open a door and try to bring somebody up behind you, because you never know when they'll be able to turn around and take care of you. One of my former interns invested $150,000 in one of my independent films. And that was just him paying it forward to support me. I wasn't even asking for the money. I was just telling him about a project that I'm doing and that we went over budget and I need X amount of money. And he wrote me a check. This is somebody that I groomed, that just grew their wings and flew on to greatness. And I think that that's what the biggest legacy is that you could leave, is the impression that people have of you and what you did to help them get to where they are today.
That's awesome advice. I don't know if Nikki or Sheila, you want to add to that?
Well, I
I would just
always
go ahead.
go
No.
ahead, Nikki. You go.
No, I was just going to say once again, piggyback off of what Deidre said, what's most important for us is to not be afraid when we get in the room to leave the door cracked for someone else to come through, right? It's so important and so necessary for us as Black women to not be so caught up in the fact that we made it that we forget how to empower other women to make it. I know for certain I lost count at the amount of sisters that I was able to help at least position for a little something better. I'm not going to take credit for, performing any magic in anybody's career, but I know as a result of my desire to help empower other women that the content that I create employs, they've made money, they've been able to provide for their families, and there have been opportunities given to them that they wouldn't have had I not been willing to do that. So we just have to leave a door cracked and stop being so caught up in our own success. It is a universal thing.
I also think that we have to get outside of a box, outside of our box. That we've got to move into new industries and new areas and meet new people, and then to broaden our network. I always believe if I can broaden my network, then I can bring other people along with me. But you have to get outside of what is your comfort zone and start moving into some other areas to be able to broaden your network. And so I think that's real. That's what I found to be very important in terms of supporting and giving back as well. Deidre and I are both products of Howard University and School of
Ain't
Communications.
you?
Okay, I can't begin to tell you how many interns have come through my doors. I said they must have a something up on the board that says "Call Miles Ahead" because I'm like the first person that they call, and I appreciate and I love the fact that I can train them and they stay with me for 3 to 5 years and then they push on and they move on. So I think that's very important is understanding taking someone who's just coming into the industry and training them and understand knowing that they're going to move on. So
Okay, we got two questions. Alfred Edmond Jr. is on. He says, serious facts being shared here, excellent. And then he asks, Deidre, are those that you help bring into the industry doing the same for others to increase the number of Black women in executive positions?
They absolutely are. And as a matter of fact, if they aren't, I'm the first person to call them to send them somebody that they can help out. So it's about paying it forward. And yes, I've been so overwhelmed with looking at them grow and growing their businesses and the opportunities that they're bringing to young people that are graduating or coming straight off the street that want to get into the music industry, because you don't need a degree to be in this business. You just have to know how to hustle and network. So I have seen that, and I'm really proud that they are doing that, and I hope that they got it from me.
That's awesome. So Lydia Marie Kashaka says, if you didn't go into the music industry, do you feel like you would have made an impact in other industries?
I would
Well, I
say,
think I can answer that because
go ahead.
Nikki, go ahead, because I was going to say you have been able to make an impact on TV, and so has Deidre. So I would say the answer to that is yes. But go ahead, I'm gonna let you answer.
I'm sorry, Dorinda. I don't know if it's my headphones or not, but I'm having a hard time hearing you. The question, but to answer that question, yes, absolutely. I think the industry put me in a position to have a platform to really be able to diversify my entertainment portfolio and really get into other more impactful businesses and opportunities. I mean, absolutely. If I hadn't been in the music industry, R&B Divas wouldn't have been born. If I hadn't been in the music industry, I wouldn't have the perspective and the input that I have on so much. It's given me the opportunity to travel the world. And when we talk, I want a disclaimer. When we talk about the industry and what is happening in the industry that needs to be improved, it's not to attack. It's not to cause, you know, issue or tension. It's just to bring light to issues that can improve for everybody's benefit, where we all make money. So, getting back to your question, I don't believe my voice would be as impactful as it is now had it not been for the music industry and R&B music. And I am absolutely moving into other areas of activism so that I can use that platform in different ways, for sure.
Thank you for answering the question. Before I go to the last two questions, I want to remind everyone to tune into the next edition of Lead 360 on June 18th. We will have the incomparable Beverly Evans Smith, who's the national president of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, discussing the importance of legacy and leadership, so you don't want to miss it. And we'll also be posting a link to the post survey for this broadcast on Facebook and Twitter. And if you register, we'll send you an email. So, time to complete the survey so we can ensure that we bring you content that is relevant to your personal and professional development. And also be sure to join our Lead 360 Her groups on LinkedIn and Facebook, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. So, this question is for all of you. I'm going to start with Nikki. What are you most proud of in your contributions to Black music?
I think you asked what I'm most proud of in my contributions to Black music. Oh,
Yes.
Jesus. I am most proud that when I look back on my career from 23 years old when I started, the music that I wrote, the legacy that I hope that I'm leaving for my grandchildren and my grandchildren's children is one of quality versus quantity. I'm proud that I never wavered in my quest or mission to empower women. I know I haven't always done it in the right way in terms of, speaking politically correct or whatever, but I'm proud that I spoke my heart and that I continue to make great content in music. And I think that is a very important thing. I'm not going to see Dolores Tucker, y'all, but do your research.
How about you, Deidre?
It'll help if I push you on mute. Anyway, I think one of the greatest things is that I have never burnt a bridge, and I still am constantly able to cross over it to reach back and to reconnect with people that I've known from the day that I first started in this industry. I think that's a blessing. It's helped me to continue now that I have my own company. I can call artists and book them. I can reach them faster sometimes than their managers can. And just having those relationships, I think, is something that I'm most proud of. And the fact that I can always reach back and I can get people on the phone. So I think that speaks to, how your relationship was and how you treated people while you were in those powerful positions. Because a lot of times when people lose those big titles and they're no longer at those companies, nobody answers your phone call. So I think that the thing I'm most proud of is that my phone calls still get answered.
I think I'm the most proud of. We
Yes, because
started 20
everybody
years.
knows Deidre Tate.
We started 20 years ago doing
Go
camps for
ahead,
kids.
Sheila.
We started 20 years ago doing camps, entertainment camps for kids. And they learn about the music industry and then they create their own little TV show. And that has been probably what I feel most. I mean, I've done a lot of work with artists and a lot of work in broadcasting, but it is nothing like seeing the faces of children in the inner city from a week's camp and where they've come from or when they started to where they ended up and how they flourished. So that's really been my passion and love is making sure that I continue to do my camps for kids, for inner city kids.
That's awesome. I just want to tell all of you ladies that you all hold a special place in my heart. Nikki was the first person to come and support my book launch. She came to Jersey during a nor'easter when I was launching my book, and I so appreciate it. She was the first one in Atlanta to welcome me. So thank you, Nikki, for that. Deidre, you had me on the vineyard with Mark Morial's mom, which was near and dear to my heart to be part of that legacy and to be in the room with her. And you've been a great supporter of my work on the corporate side and personally. And Sheila, to be on the stage with Nona Hendrix and just countless legends in the music industry when I was awarded the Salute Her Award, I will never, ever, ever forget it. So thank you for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
Before I ask my last question,
Wait,
I'm
Dorinda,
looking at
Dorinda, we just all want to say that you are a shining example, and we are all so proud to have known you and see your journey because you have helped not only us, but so many women and companies get their shine on while you are a high powered corporate executive. You are still just as powerful, and we are definitely honored to have been in your presence.
No
Yes, we
question.
love you, Dorinda.
Yes.
thank you. So speaking of love, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you ladies about the life and legacy of Andre Harrell. He's been such an impact and the champion in the Black music industry. Can you guys share a story about Andre and, just for the viewers so that we can celebrate him, his life, and his legacy? And
Yeah.
Deidre, I'll start with you.
Okay, so for those of you that do not know, when Gerald Busby, my mentor, signed Andre and Uptown Records, they were underneath MCA and they did not have their own staff. So while I was at MCA, I actually was the Northeast promotion rep that worked all of the early Uptown records. It was amazing working with Andre and his team. This is when they had Father MC, Finesse and Quest. I'll Be Sure was signed to their management company, but he was on Warner Brothers. Jeff Red had just started. So it was an amazing experience. Andre was like none other, and his entire staff. I'm so sorry. Alexa, pause. My Alexa went off. Hold on a second.
Alexa trying to tell us about Andre Harrell.
Alexa's trying to talk about Andre. So Andre's entire staff, anybody that knows Sugar, Dice, Jimmy Love, every single person that worked at Andre's office sounds exactly like Andre. He had his own Andre isms. The way he talked, he'd be like, "Yo, money, what's good?" Like the way that he talked, his entire team loved him so much. They all emulated his behavior and his mannerisms. And then, of course, we all know Puffy came in from Howard. So he used to always be in my office because he was always trying to get tickets because he knew I went to Howard. So he's always had that hustle, and the way Andre just nurtured him and turned him, and really gave him the foundation to become the giant he is by pushing him out the door when it was time for him to start his own thing. That's the biggest way that he could have honored him, and the most respect that I have for Andre because he made that tough decision when he saw somebody in his organization was getting so big he wanted him to fly out on his own instead of discouraging him. So he gave him that tough love, and that's how he was with all of his artists and also his staff. So I love and miss him dearly. And champagne and bubbles, I'm gonna have a toast to him tonight too.
Okay. And
Sheila, how about you?
that's what's so beautiful about Andre. I did one of my first deals with him, endorsement deals with his artists, and he was tough, but he taught me how to the parameters of a deal and how to put a great deal together. And that's the way he was. He was always pushing you to do more, to learn more, in his own renegade kind of way. And so that's just who he was, and I appreciate that because I learned so much from him when I was doing my endorsement deals, with his artists. So
Awesome. Nikki.
Yes, Andre Harrell. What I remember most about Andre Harrell, and it's funny because people ask me what I remember most about Maxie. I remember her laugh. I remember her smile. I don't think I have ever seen Andre Harrell not smiling, not
mhm.
happy, not loving music, not in the moment. Fabulous, Nick. Y'all was fabulous. Y'all killed that. You hear me? You know what I mean? Everybody know how Andre got down. And I just remember him always, every time I saw the brother, I remember him encouraging me and lifting me in the group. And I had a lot of insecurities as a young artist, right? I had a lot of insecurities about my weight. I had a chip on my shoulder from Detroit. And I just remember Andre Harrell made me feel relaxed every time I was in his presence and made me feel optimistic and made me feel like a dope ass artist. So I love him for that. And I will always remember his smile and I will always remember his swagger and fabulous. I just remember fabulous. That's
Yeah.
it.
He was a dream maker, a dream builder, and a dream maker for sure.
He
Well,
was a
thank you,
legend.
ladies,
He
for
was a legend.
sharing. Because I didn't know him personally, but I know his impact and all that he did in the music industry. So couldn't let this conversation go by without acknowledging him and his legacy. We got a funny. I guess this is a funny remark from Dr. Walton. Do you have to have a New York accent to be successful in the music industry?
Excuse me.
That's hilarious.
You better do your research. Diana Ross. Look, Detroit. Hello. I think you gotta have Detroit accent to be successful in the music industry. What y'all got to say, Sheila and
Oh,
Deidre
wait a
and,
minute.
and
Hey,
Miranda?
I
What
think
y'all
We
got to say?
got go-go. We got go-go down here. Okay. Okay.
I think I'm the only one that's a native New Yorker that's on this panel. So I take offense to that comment.
Detroit in the house. That's right, Lydia.
And I'm a Jersey girl. New York and Jersey is almost the same.
Mm.
Well, ladies, on behalf of Lead 360 Her, and everyone who's a fan of Black music, I want to say thank you for your contributions to Black music. I want to say keep on doing what you're doing. And in closing, please let everyone know how they can follow you and support you. Deidre, you go.
Okay, so on Facebook, it's Deidre Tate. On Instagram and Twitter, it's at Deidre Tate, and my name is spelled DedraTate. I am always accessible, and I am actually one of the people that will always get back to you.
And that is very true. Okay. We are miles ahead. And then my show is Cafe Mocha Radio at Cafe Mocha Radio. So either one of those, you got me.
I am at Nikki Gilbert with two C's, Nicci. I know it says Nietzsche, but I was trying to be fabulous, y'all. At Nikki Gilbert on all platforms, and please follow noego.tv on YouTube and at She Speaks Live on Instagram.
Mm.
Okay, you ladies are bosses. Thank you for sharing.
Oh,
We
I just
love
want
you,
to say
Deborah
I'm
hi,
just
Williams.
Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
We all got some of that
and Sheila,
herd game too.
Sheila, you mentioned Be Lifted Up. Where can we follow Be Lifted Up?
You can be lifted up on it's on channel 141 on Sirius XM. It comes on 3 times a week. So make sure you check it out there. It's on WLIB in New York. And you can go to Be Lifted Up Radio and it's on podcast. And of course, it's
Awesome.
D. Marshall and Alfred Edmonds Jr.
Awesome. Well, ladies, have a blessed and phenomenal rest of your evening. Stay safe, and we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you
Good to
so
see you,
much,
ladies.
Thank
Sheila,
you.
Stay
for all
It
you
was
safe.
do.
great
Thank
seeing
you.
you.
Thank you. Nikki, call me.
I will.
I was going to say, say
We got
it.
right.
Do
Dorinda
it.
connected us, so we got each other's
Yeah,
contact.
definitely. Hit me up. Okay.
All right, I
Talk
will.
to you
Thank
later
you.
on.
Love
Love
to you,
you
ladies.
guys.
Love
Bye. Bye.
you.
Bye bye.